All right, this video is going to be covering how to do the Batman CAD logo assignment. So this is our first kind of assignment, kind of digging into a review of tools and how CAD can actually be used to make stuff. So I know that we've done a lot of CAD work in the past, and most of it's been for 3D printing, but actually CAD is used in a whole lot of different ways, not just for 3D printing, but you can use it for laser cutting, you can use it for CNC machining, you can use it for all kinds of different things. Pretty much any tool path where some kind of tool is going to, cut something out or create something or extrude something, that's going to be CAD. So what we're going to be doing in this is we're going to be practicing this one to make a Batman logo. And this is just going to be a practice, but in the next assignment, what we're actually going to be doing is you guys are going to kind of trace your own logo, whatever it is that you want, your football team, favorite college, whatnot, and you're actually going to be cutting this out on the vinyl cutter. And that's going to be useful because the vinyl cutter is not only a vinyl cutter, but it's also a plotter, so you can actually do a whole lot with this machine. So it's not just something where we're using CAD. We're going to be taking CAD and actually creating a working file that we could use to machine or cut or print or draw or plot. So there's actually a lot that we can do. So the goal of this is we're going to be taking this Batman logo and we are going to CAD it up, save it as an SVG, which is the preferred image format of the cutter plotter, and that's what we're going to use. And file formats are just kind of a thing. I mean, you think that engineering is only all about math or science, but there are a lot of other technical little things that go into it, and one of those is file formats, whether it's a graphics format or a MATLAB format or a CAD format. There's just a lot of them, and wherever you go, whether it's biomedical or mechanical or electrical, there are file formats that you're going to have to work with because software is what most engineers use. So there's the hands-on portion, and then there's the software stuff, which is something you're going to have to do. So let's go ahead and dig into this. So the first thing you're going to need to do is go ahead and let's create an OnShape document, which by now you guys should know how to do. So I have my OnShape document. I call the Batman logo right here, and then from here, what I'm going to do is go ahead and from the Canvas assignment, I'm just going to make sure that I save this image. Now I'm just going to save it to the desktop. I've already done it a couple times, saved it to the desktop, and it's there. That's just going to let us put it into OnShape. So unfortunately, you can't just drag and drop or copy paste. You actually have to save it for it to work with OnShape. So go ahead and do that. From here, what we need to do is create a sketch. And I'm just going to use this front plane. And when I get to my front plane here, one of the options that's on my toolbar is right here. You see a little insert image. And from the drop down, I'm just going to insert an image. Now there's DXF or DWG. Those are going to be actually pretty important file formats for later. Different tools use different file formats, and DXF and DWG are definitely important. But what we're going to do now is just go ahead and go here. Now from here in OnShape, we can just import our Batman logo, and we can see that it pops up right here. Now, could we have gone through this way and just hit the plus sign and imported it that way? Absolutely. So all we're doing here is just getting it into our CAD document, into our OnShape document. So you could have just hit plus and import it this way, or you can insert the image that way and then go through the sketch. But that's what we need. So we're going to insert that image. Now that it's imported, we can see it. I'll do that. Excuse me again for me. I lost my sketch. So now that's imported, it actually shows up here. So I can click on that. And then when I click and drag, it actually kind of moves around there. Now I'm going to go ahead and just drag it out. And there's my Batman logo. So we'll go ahead and say, okay. So we got our Batman logo right there. And the reason we're doing this is because we're going to want to trace this. And this is actually something that is useful because there are a lot of different shapes or images, vectors, things like that, that we're going to want to trace and actually be able to make into a toolpath. So an image, like our Batman logo right here, is a raster file. It's a bitmap image. So it can't actually be used for toolpaths because it's just seen as a collection of pixels, right? So these pixels are black, that's yellow, that's yellow, that's yellow, that's black. So it doesn't actually see it as lines or shapes or anything that an actual machine could use. It just sees it as like this pixel is yellow, 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 black, 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 yellow, yellow. And it can't be used for toolpaths. But once we trace this, we will actually be able to take those lines, those vectors, and be able to use them. So here's our Batman logo. So what we need to do now is go ahead and make another sketch. And now we're sketching on the same plane. And now we're going to use our actual OnShape drawing tools to trace this shape and actually make it into some toolpaths. Now we could use any of our different tools up here. So our lines, circles, our arcs, our polygons, but the one that's going to be really super useful for this is the spline, right? Which is kind of this curvy line that we can kind of control, and it's kind of like a line, it's a curve, right? And it is a little difficult to use, but it's actually very useful. So I'm going to start just with using my line tool, and we're going to get this kind of top part of it just because this is easy. So we'll just click, 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 and click, and we'll hit escape. And once you hit escape, you'll notice the tool's not highlighted anymore. And we also notice that I kind of missed this point a little bit, but that's okay because in OnShape, after we hit escape and the tool's no longer selected, I can actually just click on this and drag it around and reposition this. And this is going to actually be super useful when we actually start using the spline point because it's hard to get it perfect the first time. So it is really helpful to be able to go back and kind of drag it around and tweak it until it looks good. So we have that part done. So let's go ahead and choose the spline tool. So a spline is just kind of a curvy line that makes all of the points that you insert kind of tangential to the line itself, which, if, you're a math person, tangent means that it's kind of normal, it kind of, kind of just curves around instead of, being bendy and all, weird. So we'll grab our spline tool and I'm going to start it from this point. So I could just kind of click wherever, but you want to be careful because remember, in order to make this a full, closed path, it needs to be a closed shape, which means that we need to start our spline right here at this point. So if I hover over here, you can see that it's selected, right? There's a little square around it. That means that it's going to start this spline right at the end of that line. So we'll go and click there. You can see my spline. And this is a weird tool to use. So it's going to take a little bit of a struggle, and that's okay because you can always just undo everything. Control Z is your friend. And you can just kind of keep practicing because this is a little bit of a weird tool. But the way it works is we kind of just click, and you can see that it's kind of making this line that is, depending on where you click on the points, it keeps all of your points kind of normal to everything else. So if I click point here, right, it makes this nice smooth curve. And we'll just go right here. Now we can see that here it starts to change a little bit. And this is where the spline tool gets a little funky. So instead of just clicking here, so if I click and I'm holding down the mouse now and I just kind of drag it, you can see that I can kind of control where the next point goes. So that's what we're going to do. So instead of just clicking and, clicking, I'm going to click and I'm going to hold this down until I kind of get a curve that I kind of like, which is right about here. Like I said, don't worry about making it perfect. We just have to get it close. We can always tweak it later. So I'll click here and click, and this is looking pretty good. That's why I like the spline. It makes a nice smooth line. Then I'll go and to finish it off, the easiest way is just to double click right there. So we double click and there my spline's done. Now I don't want to just start clicking on points and moving them because if you notice right here, my spline tool is still selected. So if I click somewhere, it's going to make another spline, which, let me explain, it's bad. Dead joke. So we'll hit escape, and we notice that the spline is no longer selected. And now I can actually go back and kind of tweak these points. So I can just click on them, kind of move them around, and get them situated the way that I want them. So this was a little off. Now, it doesn't need to be perfect. We're just kind of using this tool for the first time, so we're just going to get it close. Now, the better you can get it, the more points that your assignment is worth. As long as I see good, smooth, consistent edges, you'll be fine. So that looks pretty good. So I'm going to grab my spline tool again, and we'll start a new one. So again, I'm going to hover over until I'm locked onto that first point. Click. And now I'm just going to keep clicking. And this is a pretty easy, smooth curve, so it's pretty good. So as long as I kind of follow these edges, it's good. Now it's starting to get a little rough, so I'm going to go ahead and click and drag. Now you have to hold down when you click and then drag it around, and that's going to kind of force that point. But again, don't worry about getting it, perfect the first time. You can always go back and kind of finish it up. So right here, I'm going to double click there. There's my spline. I can see there's some real rough edges. So I'm going to hit escape, and there I have no tool selected. And now I can just kind of go back. And that's the nice thing about the spline. It keeps the curves kind of regular and nice and smooth. So I'm going to go back and just kind of tweak these until we get this really nice shape.